Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to Tech Talk Podcast by GSDC. Today, we will continue listening to the very enlightening conversation between Adam Sandman and Harsh Wardhan.
How is it going to change different industries? And we've talked a lot about, we think we've talked about retail, we talked about content creation, SEO, the creative architecture. What other industries are you seeing it being adopted quickly in, or even just it having interesting use cases that maybe are not as obvious?
I cannot name out the specific industries that I'm working with immediately.
Okay.
But I can definitely say it's across the board. And one of the things, I think you already brought this up in the conversation previously. One of the things that we are seeing is customer service.
Hmm.
And that is the immediate impact frontline workers, how they are augmenting their work, how they are utilizing generative AI capabilities. I think you brought up the manuals example. You
Hmm.
can be much faster in providing that service to the end consumer of any service or product. You can also replace people using AI. Now,
Hmm.
that again begs the question, should we be going for replacement or making it faster? I think, again, your example of doing it together rather than replacing, think of it as a team. Um,
Right.
I think we are already seeing it in many different capabilities. It has been there. It has been there in some form. For example, Amazon. When you buy something from Amazon and there's a problem with the order, the first line of contact that you do is with a chatbot,
Hmm.
and then it transfers over to a human when the
Right.
chat
Right.
it's out of its bounds. So I think that can lift the pressure off the human only for the tasks and decision making that cannot be taken by a model. So that for example, I was having that conversation with Amazon chatbot. That's why it's fresh in my mind. And I think I think within the first four exchanges, my problem was not resolved, and then it
It was
was
escalated.
escalated, and then it got resolved. But that number of to and fro messages is going to increase with the chatbot
Mhm.
because the capabilities are going to increase. So I think across the industry, that's something that we are definitely
I mean,
seeing.
on our side, on the industry, we work with different industries, but in our own industry, which is the software testing, software development, lifecycle industry, we help, our products are used to help people think of software, design it, develop it, test it, put it into production, and, obviously fix things when they go wrong. That's what people use our products for. So we get an insight into these companies working in technology. And it's interesting to me, the co-pilot flavor of tools, particularly so the code, which we haven't talked about much yet, the code generation, generative AI is fantastic. It's phenomenal. But also what we haven't realized, and none of us realized, is that anything that's on a public GitHub repo has already trained the model. So we had this I can't name the customer name, but we have a customer that's using one of our tools. And they were asking us about our roadmap for AI, generative AI in the product. And we said, oh, it's coming in 2024. We've got some big plans, all that stuff. They go, well, they said, but it's already done for you. It already works. We went, okay. So our own customer went to Copilot and had it generate
Yeah,
scriptless automation in our own tool. I was like, wow, this is crazy. And now we've been playing around with it. It can comment. It can do code reviews. We not only can it write code, which we knew it could do, but as you said, for reasoning, it can generate code. It can comment on other people's code. So the
yeah,
whole code review industry is going to change. So, and then as you said, documentation. We have some technologists who are fantastic programmers, but their ability to write human readable, followable manuals, not so much. It's no offense, guys. So, but they can use Copilot and then the generative AI text creation to speed up code reviews, to do compliance reviews, and then obviously to do the manual generation. So for the software development industry, and then I mentioned earlier on the testing use cases are incredible. You know, so now what's the role of the human in that? Back to the whole, how do humans work in the workplace and what are the challenges going to be? I mean, if you work with a client and you have to determine, we're going to build this new, say, pizza ordering app, you work with a client to understand the business model, and then maybe that's most of what you do. And from that, the first prototype of the app is coded by an AI, it's tested by an AI, documented by an AI, and you show it to the client. And then as a user experience professional, and people working in the user experience modeling domains, they will then work with customers and focus groups of the human users to then adjust this model, this application. And that may be the skills we're going to need, much more of the soft skills, the user-centered design skills. And people always ask me, I have a lot of friends, my kids are in their 20s, they're in college doing various degrees, and people doing CS degrees that will come to me and say, Adam, what's the future for work? And my view would be multimodal skills that don't just become a computer science developer. Understand design, understand graphics, understand human behavior, liberal arts even. Like, I think the future for humans is going to be a much more rounded education rather than these narrow technical only disciplines, at least is my thinking. I don't know. Have you come across, what are your thoughts on that side of things, on the career?
I mean, definitely you'll have to have an understanding of entire landscape. It couldn't be just one. And then probably you don't need to go deeper into the creation aspect of it. For example, I was reading this somewhere that in the next few years, the rise of solopreneurs is going to be huge. Today, when we think of solopreneurs, they are either in content creation or social media, but in future, solopreneurs in also like one person company creating something, selling something. And how is this going to happen? This is going to happen because they will be augmenting different parts of the company to the AI tools. So you cannot do that unless you have an understanding, a basic level of understanding of that particular area of work. For example, user experience design, what you just mentioned. My background is in user experience design, and when I work on projects that involve that, and when I'm seeing what AI tools can do, it is completely replacing the creation aspect of it. For example, you can quickly churn out new user interfaces. So UI design is going to be immediately impacted. It can learn from existing apps on what a good digital user experience for a certain type of application
Wow.
means. And it can apply that. So all of that creation aspect is there. Then comes the research part of it, the front end white space research part of it, where we do a lot of interviews, we generate a lot of data, we do a lot of video recordings to observe people. Now, the interesting part, that seems to be something very intangible and human that we can do. But AI can watch a video and it can tell you, translate to text on what's happening there.
Right.
We already know that AI can go through a text and understand the context. So it is going to a level of generating insights in terms of research. So that is also happening. Now think about the whole design process. It looked at the data, interview data, and video data, generated insights. Going from insights to design principles won't be too hard if it is trained right. Using those design principles, it can create a software with a prompt. I mean, it can create the code, and then the designs, and then it puts it together, and it has replaced design.
And it can test it, as we've already seen. It can test it and at least validate it to a certain level.
So that is, testing is also a place where then the humans come in. And I'll tell you how. And this is my perspective. You tell me, you're the expert. I think wherever there is the human element or interfacing of the outcome of whatever the generation is with a human, that's where I think other humans will be involved in doing the work, because humans are unpredictable. As species, there are patterns. There are certainly patterns that we follow, but overall, each individual is an individual. Each individual's reaction is going to be unpredictable. We can go only thus far with AI, at least as of now.
As of today, I think as of literally this today, what are we, December 27th, 2023, I feel like the AI will be, right now the AI could do a basic run through the application, could make sure that the basic screens work, that the buttons are in the right place. When you click on them and say you're ordering a pizza, you can do the right things. It can already it can already anticipate, however, the negative outcome. So in this first version, we've built. It can tell you, I want to book a hotel room. It already knows to try all the stupid things people do, like book a hotel for the wrong year. In the past, it can try and book a flight landing in and arriving in the same place. So it already understands the idea of negative use cases. It really understands how to break something.
Uh-huh.
So it's close. It can't yet simulate multiple people trying to use the same app in different contexts, and some
Yeah.
succeeding and some struggling. But if it could watch the videos of people using the app after it's released or its beta version, I think
Yeah.
it could. I think in 6 months' time we'll be talking and saying, yes, it's a great. It's even the validation, the testing. It would need maybe human volunteers, like so. We're not the one. We're doing the. We're the test subjects,
Yeah.
giving it the
Yeah.
data feed, giving it the raw data to process.
That
The
that
volunteer
certain
army.
that certainly takes a dystopian turn to the whole conversation.
Well, I didn't
Anyway,
mean that. Well, so another thing is the guys in my R&D team who've been doing this, they've been getting a little bit freaked out over the holiday break, and they were like, "Adam, are we heading towards a singularity?" And they said, "Look,
yeah,
maybe in the future you just say, 'I'm hungry and I want pizza,' and it
yeah,
literally creates an app for you." For that moment, and then the app
yeah,
disappears. It's a per use case. It's like the ultimate Siri. It's right.
yeah.
It rewires the technology and whatever you need. So maybe our future is being pizza maker. Maybe it's going back to artisanal products. And in the same way that my daughter's got a record player at college, even though she has Spotify, all these technologies, we do as
Yeah.
humans yearn for the tangible. And so we may find that AI does a whole bunch of this intangible digital economy, and we are, in the end, going back to some of the older arts. I don't know. I mean, that's just a dystopian view. I
Like
hope that's not
farming.
true. Yeah,
No,
right, right.
and farming is just an example. It could be other core jobs also. I think a lot of things that we do today is going to be replaced, like
Hmm.
even on our phone, opening the camera
Yeah.
or using apps. I think Bill Gates said this probably a few days ago, that the concept of apps is going to go away. Um,
Right.
like you
Makes
said,
sense.
ultimate Siri, you are just interfacing with a chat bar, or you're just interfacing with whatever the voice assistant that you're using.
Hmm.
You're just asking it, telling
Right.
it, that's it. There are no apps.
It composes what it
Um,
needs from apps or from services. Right. Right.
yeah. And that frees up so much of your time to learn and to implement. I mean, imagine all the time that we spend on trying to do thing, and it's automatically done by this ubiquitous technology that frees up our time to think beyond. Maybe we'll finally go to Mars.
Right, and also that also goes back to the question: is if user interfaces in some ways go away and replaced by a very different user experience, then who's developing and testing that? And that is a very different form of testing. So I think there will be new jobs to do those to go back from a dystopian to maybe utopian view. You're right; it will free
Yeah,
us up to do things. AI can be much more efficient with the resources. Like what's finite in this world? That's what we have to think about, right? Natural
yeah,
resources, look at the environment, population growth, look at time and natural resources. These are the finite constraints on humanity. And if we could use them more efficiently with AI helping us, we could go to
yeah,
Mars. We could solve a lot of the big problems that are bigger than the digital domain. Hopefully, that's the positive outcome. Is that AI could let us. It's like a force multiplier. With we could do so many things that we resource constrained as opposed to and maybe time constrained.
yeah, exactly. And that is the way that organizations, individuals, and even governments need to think. That is the directional thinking that we should be taking as a social construct, rather than the Terminator side of the views.
Right, right. Or the it's gonna take all my jobs and I'm just and right. It's the this human AI team will be able to do things that right now we can't even think of doing. In the
Yeah,
same way that when other inventions before the internet, before aeroplanes, I mean, no one no, no if you look back those and you say the pace is so much faster now that if we couldn't have imagined a world of today then how can we imagine a world of tomorrow now? It's not that makes sense that it's going to and it's evolving as you said month by month. So I think it needs imagination and it needs people to dream. I think that's some of the things we need to think about. The young people who are worried about the cost of houses and all this things that they read about in the news put their phone down and dream and think about what futures they can create. I think with AI, don't see it as my parents' jobs are going away. I'm going to be unemployed. See it as in this new world, I'm going to be able to dream and build things that no one thought possible.
exactly, exactly. I do want to get your opinion, Adam, on this
Okay.
question. Um, in 5 years, what do you see?
Oh wow.
I
In
think that
five.
this is, to be fair, this is the toughest question that somebody can ask someone in context of Gen AI. So,
Mm. Well, I think in 5 years there will be other. First of all, I think there will be other strands of AI beyond Gen AI. I think one of the dangers we're going to one of the dangers right now is that we're obsessing over Gen AI at its the exclusivity of other forms of AI.
mhm,
Deep machine learning, reductive analysis, things where you're looking at using data that you have to find other ways of using basically large neural networks, large autonomous computing devices to do other things, not just generate using an LLM, which is a specific use case. So I think if you look how far we've come with LLMs in such a short time, and there are other use cases and other approaches using the same computing power and the same neural network design, autonomous computing designs, there's things that outside of Gen AI which I think in the next 5 years will become as commonplace as ChatGPT was a year ago. So I would
mhm,
say that's going to be the underlying biggest change. Will be in 5 years, AI across all its different flavors will be just an infrastructure that we are used to. And I
right.
think I also think that once you start looking at people using it in mission critical, safety critical, power grids, healthcare, I think it's going to be a lot of it will be legislation and a lot of it will be compliance. A lot of it's going to be in 5 years' time, the entire regulatory legal landscape will have to be completely different. So I think in 5 years' time, um, we won't be using any kind of device that we see today. Everything will be, as you said, very fluid and integrated into our world, whether our natural senses will be the natural senses we use. We'll look back at everything as being very primitive. And I think society and the economy will be built around how to harness AI for these different ways in a way that maximizes the benefit for humanity um, and hopefully countries working together to do that, not obviously in some degree competition, cooperation as well. So I do think it's going to be a very, very different landscape. So I don't know if I fully answered the question, but I do think that every industry, every sphere of work will be very different. I think what we do, how we derive meaning from work will be different. And I think how we spend our time will be different. And I think the ways in which we interact with other humans and machines will be very different. And maybe we will no longer see ourselves as the dominant species on the planet and not see ourselves so arrogantly. Maybe it will allow us to embrace other natural life forms in a very different way, where we treat them like cattle and like livestock. Maybe we will become much more humble as a species, which may be a good thing. So I think it'll be a very different philosophical and ethical landscape in 5 years.
I love the part where you said we'll become more humble as a species because it's time. It's time that we became that.
What do you think?
Um, I think um, I think we need to do a lot of scenario planning at this moment. I think everything, I'll plus one everything you said. In 5 years' time, things are going to be way different. We were talking about workplace, how we perceive work. What does work mean in the first place? What are you working on? What are you doing to move the needle? I think that's going to change. And we are seeing that across industry, like we already
Hmm.
discussed with some few example of content and design. Um, Devices now, with devices it's hard to predict, with the physical things that we interact with, it's hard to predict because there's also this ideology of using familiar things, familiar hardware for a longer
Hmm.
period of time so that
Hmm.
people are easy in adopting them. I
Hmm.
think so. I can't say about devices, but the way that we interact them, it's going to become much more multimodal. Maybe we'll have more microphones than screens, more speakers than
Hmm.
screens. Just an idea.
Hmm.
Um, but whatever the future is going to be, I think it's going to come really fast. Maybe it's going to come in 2.5 years rather than 5 years.
Hmm.
So what we need to do is we need to be preparing for that. We need to be setting up the governance model, the ethical lines, the guardrails,
Hmm.
so that we don't do the same mistakes that we did with industrialization and software development. I'm not going to call out those mistakes.
Right. Or
We
the
have,
internet. Right. 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 Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
we have seen the social dilemma, all of us. So
Hmm.
I think we should be. that's where my most important point lies, is that
I
we need to
agree.
be. Yeah,
And we need to be intentional about it. I agree with you. We need to be intentional about it and have leaders that are willing to lead in this domain.
that's right.
And who knows if I don't know if we do, but that's a question for a different podcast.
Yeah,
So
rightly.
I think that's a good ending, right? I mean, I think we've covered everything from where it's going, where it's come from, what its current capabilities are, how fast it's moving, and how it's going to impact us and what the world might look like, knowing that we'll probably be 100% wrong, as always, in 5 years. So I think really great to have this conversation with you, Harsha, and we need to keep having this conversation, both us and everyone else. I think people need to have these insights and discussions and be open and frank about what they do and don't know, because I think admitting you don't know is important, and being humble, as you meant, as I said, and you meant agreed, is that we as a species are going to be humbled by what we've created, and that's maybe a good
100%.
thing.
I completely enjoyed this podcast. I hope the viewers and listeners do too. And like you said, it's an open conversation. We might be completely wrong in 5 years time or 2 years time, who knows. But this is what we can do. We can dive into what we already have and be intentional in what we intend to create and aim to create. um,
Absolutely.
so great meeting you, Adam. I hope we continue this conversation, and with that we would like to end the podcast.
Thank you very much.
That was an amazing conversation. And to all the listeners, do feel free to leave your inputs on the comments below. So until we see you again on the next episode, do subscribe to our channel to stay updated and feel free to share.